our next performer, we're happy to welcome back for another year at our festival, Tony Argento. Now, Tony began reciting at age 5, which was in 1965, I understand. And this was thanks to his grandfather, who instilled this love of cowboy poetry. The first poem he actually memorized, and this might be an indication of some of his new works, was The Devil's Tale. Now, Tony's style was considered to be tuned up and twisted, and I know he's going to lift you up this afternoon, so please welcome to our stage Mr. Tony Argento. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. How we doing? Let's hear it. I like to hear a rip-roaring crowd. On the count of 3. What? 3? Doggone it. All right. I want to hear a rip-roaring e-haw. I want Carson City to hear it. You with me? 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Awesome. Great crowd. How many of you here, it's your first time? And how many of you here have been here before? Okay, everybody, that's good, I like that. How many of you here have heard cowboy poetry? And how many of you haven't? Everybody again, good. All right, you get an A. I have to say, I was just out here walking by, there's a lady, a vendor out there, and she goes, "Sir, I really like your beard." And I started blushing, I said, "Aw." I said, I didn't like it at first, but it just kind of grew on me. I'm going to give you the first poem that I learned in '65. I was so impressed with my grandfather reciting this. Like, how can this old man remember all this? But what really sparked this poem to memorize it was I could picture these characters and what they looked like, what they were doing and where they were. And this was written in 1917 by a fellow we consider one of our founding fathers of cowboy poetry, as we know it today, named Gale Gardner. He was on his way to go train for the Air Service before it was called the Air Force in 1939. He was on a coach car called the Santa Fe Limited, going through the state of Kansas, and he saw what he termed as round-rumped cattle. He pulled out his quill and he penned this poem. It's called Tying the Knots in the Devil's Tail, or the Devil's Tail. You ready? Yeah. All right, here we go. Way up high in the Sierra peaks where the yellow pines grow tall, Buster Jiggs and Sandy Bob at a roundup camp last fall. They takes their horses and their running irons and, hell, maybe a dog or two. Why, they swore they'd brand every long-eared calf that came within their view. Now, many a long-eared doggy that didn't hush up by day had his long ears whittled and his old hide scorched in the most artistic way. Wow. One fine day, says Sandy Bob as he throws his seagulls down, "I'm tired of this cowboyography, so if allows, I'll go to town." So they saddles him up and they took off at a lope. There was no choice of a ride, for them were the days when an old cowpoke could oil up his old insides. So they started out at the Kentucky bar, at the head of Whiskey Row. Then they winded up at the Depot House some 40 drinks below. Then they sets him up. They turns him around, and by golly, they goes her the other way. To tell you the honest to goodness truth, you guessed it, boys got drunk that day. Now, as they were headed back for camp and packing up a pretty good load, well, why, who should they meet but the devil himself, prancing down the road. The devil says, "Why, you cowboy skunks, you'd better hunt your holes, for I've come up through these hell-rim rocks to gather up your souls." Says Buster Jiggs, "Why, we're just from town and feeling kind of tight. You ain't gonna get no cowboy show without some kind of a fight." So he punched a hole in his old throat rope and he slings her straight and true. And he ropes the devil around the horns, and he takes his tallies too. Now Sandy Bob was a Riata man, with his rope all coiled up neat, but he shakes it out, and he builds him a loop. And he ropes the devil's hind feet. Then they stretched him out on desert ground, and while the irons were getting hot, why, they cropped and they swallowed Forty's ears, and they burned him up a lot. Here's another one, bud. That one's going to leave a mark. Then they pruned him up with a dehorning saw. Tied knots in his tail for a joke. Then rode away, left him there, tied up to a blackjack oak. Now, you ever go up to the Sierra Peaks and you hear an awful wail? Yeah! Well then, you'll know it's the devil a bellowing around with the knots tied in his tail. Mr. Gail Gardner, thank you. I get a lot of hands when I ask this question. Do we have Marty Robbins fans in the audience? Always. What a true hero he was. There's a lot of things about that man that people admire. This album that I'm going to give you this verse from this album came out in '63 on Return of the Gunfighter LP. The song charted at number 6 and the album charted at 16. And it's a rodeo tune. It's called Old Red. And here it is. Old Red was one of the orneriest that I've seen at the big rodeo. He'd bite you and kick you and he'd stomp out your life. Old Red had never been rode. Meaner than sin and wild as the wind that blew on the Montana plains. Old Red was one of the last of his breed. And he wasn't about to be tamed. From Idaho, a young cowboy came to ride in a big rodeo. Well, this young cowboy's name was Billy McLean, and Billy had never been thrilled. The greatest desire filled the young Billy's heart to ride this young outlaw called Red. Well, he drew him one day, and I heard Billy say, "I'll ride him or drop over dead." Old Red was wicked down there in the chute. He was kicking and stomping about. But Billy climbed into the saddle with ease and yelled, "Let him loose! Turn us out!" Old Red came out with his head on the ground. His back hooves were touching his nose, trying to get rid of the man on his back. But the man went wherever he goes. Billy was raking Old Red with his spurs from the tail to the tip of his chin. He was doing right well, but Billy could tell this outlaw would never give in. Old Red was running straight for the fence. He suddenly stopped in, and then he reared on his hind legs and fell on his back. Taking poor Billy with him. Well, there was a hush in the crowd, and they knew right there that this would be Billy's last ride. The saddle horn crushed Billy's chest when they fell, and under Old Red, Billy died. Old Red lay still. No more would he move it. The cowboys that seen it could tell. In trying to throw Billy off of his back, Old Red broke his neck when he fell. Out in the west is the place where they rest this cowboy that never was throwed. And 1 foot away, resting underneath the clay, is the outlaw that never was rode. Mr. Marty Robbins, thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to thank our sound man right here, Ted, for his phenomenal job. Thank you, Ted, for your dedication, making this work. I want to thank the organizers, the volunteers, the steering committee, the entertainment committee, the sponsors, and everybody that makes this work. And I want to thank you for attending here. And I'm going to tell you why. You have a choice. Absolutely. You have a place and a time you can choose to spend your time and your money. And you're here and we appreciate it. Thank you kindly. People here like Western movies? Absolutely, that's why you're here. You've got a flavor that you like. Rimrock Country is real popular with John Ford and Sam Peckinpah. Those directors produce phenomenal movies. Idaho, California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, a lot of Rimrock Country. So I call this Under the Rimrock. Under the Rimrock's a pitched camp. 5 days ride from family and home. Above is a cave, dark and damp. Fire-sooted walls from long ago. Wildcats, quail, coyotes and deer, Quakies and hidden desert springs. Umpteen places to lose a steer. The smell of sagebrush after it rains. Crystal clear water flows ice cold from beneath the rugged, craggy peaks. Up from the ground, clear liquid gold. Livestock flourish on springs and creeks. Campfire built for dawn's early light. Embers flickered with orange glows. He's rustling up grub to get a bite, with a mess of victuals before he goes. He rides for the brand. His days are long. Canteen relief, some sun-parched lips. Good hoss and rope, guts and brawn. Colt peacemakers on holstered hips. A blizzard strong of wind and snow, and a blistering summer heat. Ain't no dangers he does not know. Riding high in a saddled seat. Cattle stampede, that's his biggest fear. Lightning, thunder, death in a blink. Except for trail dust, he breathes fresh air. Solitude gives him time to think. The fall colors are here at last. October's leaves begin to fall. Daylight hours is losing fast. Below the rim is cattle ball. Shadows dance on the rimrock wall. He views the silvery yellow moon as it's rising up high in early fall. The valley floor is cattle strewn. He calms a herd with song at night, plays harmonica and guitar, writes letters by the dim fire's light, with his bedroll of flickering stars. He's up for the sun and raring to go. Below the tree line, Jack Frost nips. Rim ledges gleam accents of snow. In the distance, coyote yips. Rimrock Country's his favorite place. Its beauty carved by God's own hands. Buried he'll be with time erased under the Rimrock's desert sands. Thank you. Folks, are we having fun yet? Yeah. I like it. Thanks for being here, really. All both of you. I'm kidding. You know, this texting and driving thing's getting way out of hand. Holy smokes. I was so upset yesterday I was driving. When I went by that guy, I threw my beer bottle at him. That's terrible. This is another fellow we consider one of our founding fathers of cowboy poetry as we know it today. His name was Bruce Cascadden. That man had a remarkable record, and I'll tell you why. He cowboyed on 3 continents. Very few fellows or ladies can say that. When he was in Europe, like my grandfather during the First World War, my grandfather was in the cavalry. He cowboyed in Australia and here in North America. I wish I could have met him. This one I'd like to give you here. I'm going to give you a couple of his today. I'm going to give you a couple tomorrow, one of my different sets as well. This one's called The Dutch Oven. And why I'm bringing this one up is because we've got a group here, the I believe it's the Sierra Nevada Dutch Oven Cooking Group, just on the other side of Town Hall in the meadow on the left there. Pay them a visit. Dutch oven cooking was dear to the heart of the cowboy. And he wrote this called The Dutch Oven. You mind that old oven, so greasy and black? We hauled in the wagon, or we put in the pack. And the biscuits she made wasn't bad by no means. And she had the world cheated for cooking up beans. If the oven was there, you could always get by. You could bake, boil, stew, you could fry. When the fire was built, she was thrown into heat. Well, they cut down the potatoes and they peeled the meat. Then the cook put the fire down into a hole. Next, he set in the oven, and put on some coals. I last remember the way the cook did, the way that he took the old gancho and lifted the lid. And he really was graceful at doing the trick. Why, hell, the old greasy sackers, they just used a stick. And boy, howdy, how he all made a graceful attack. Hit the hoss with a Dutch oven, scattered his pack. And you mind how you lifted your hoss to a lope, and you built a long loop in the end of your rope. You bet them old bodies knowed what to expect. Oh yeah, no biscuits no more if that oven got wrecked. And we didn't know much about praying or loving, but I reckon we worshiped that greasy old oven. The old cowboy smiles and his memory drifts back to the oven that rode in the wagoner pack. Mr. Bruce Kiskaden. Thank you. His writing is phenomenal. Everybody admires that man. And I wish I could have met him. This one here, it's a little short verse, this little rodeo gig I just call it Shooting for 8. You ride him, cowboy, to the count of 8 from the second you leave that old sheep gate. And the ride, oh, it's tough and it's one hell of a fight. But your skin grows thick and you hold on tight. The fury gets mean and the hate don't stop. But you do your damnedest to stay on top. And you can hear the crowds that cheering you on. You start to beg it, you still hold on. And then 8 seconds comes to a long, grueling end. Now you've qualified to do it again. It's a cowboy life. There's no other way. It's a sport we love, and it's about fun and play. And it runs through our veins, patriotic and true. The cowboy's a patriot, and God loves us too. Thank you. Thank you. Here's another one. And a gentleman, he is here, he'll be performing here, a good friend. I consider him like a adopted grandfather. His name is Mr. Kenneth Gardner. And he and Dorothy are big here at this event. Give them a hand if you would, please. Thank you. He put on a class a couple years ago at the town hall, and he used this poem to break it down about writing poetry. And it's called After the Fall Roundup, and it's by Bruce Kiskaden. And he's the reason I do this poem. Now that summer work is over and the wagon's pulling in, we said goodbye to fellas that we mightn't see again. For a cowboy don't write letters, so we mighty soon lose track. The boys that stops and works a while and never does come back. When your clothes are sort of tattered and your hat brim sags and flops, your boots is worn battered that have the fancy tops. When the owner and the bosses and the hands is most all in, and them strings of summer hosses slow down and looking thin. When them thin clouds start to trailin' through the soft and pleasant sky, and you watch old buzzards sailing, it's sort of useless, way up high. And it makes the toughest cowboy sort of steady after all, when he's dragging the wagon to the home ranch in the fall. For he can't help but remember that most cowboys don't get old. And he'll get to one November when he can't stand work and cold. Sure knows he'll be sorry when he gets like you and me. Yep, just an old man telling stories. How good it used to be. Mr. Bruce Kiskaden, thank you. That's for you, Ken and Dorothy. This one I did for a little flavor of the cowboy. I call it cowboying. How we doing, Scott? Good? All right, good man. Scott's a good man. Them britches is creeping. Old saddle a creaking. Hot sweat aroma under your nose. Your spurs is cha-chinging. The bob whites are singing. The smell of leather comforts your soul. Trail list a choking. Bull Durham you're smoking. You let your hoss stop to have a blow. With a child on your cheek as you're whistling a beat from an old cowboy tune that you know. Then you'll think of your pa and your dear old grandpa telling stories of days when they rode. Built up in your roots, your hands, back, boots. Cowboying, the only life you've known. Riata is ready, your throw always steady. Nary a miss from yours on a hoss. Tomorrow's payday. Get a bath and a shave. Remember, the man that pays your boss. In the weather, you cope. When you're twisting the smoke, in the snow and the sleet and the rain, cold cuts to the bone. You're there all alone. Those fingers and toes feel the pain. In your fish old slicker, a swig of hard liquor. Makes you feel warm and comfy inside. Just a nip now and then to help steady your hand and help ease your long day's hard ride. Then you'll drift the back wind of your childhood and kin. Knows no longer around. Riding and roping, branding and cutting. Days are gone yet you still hear the sounds. When that old fire gets built from that stogie you killed. Makes you feel warm and comfy inside. Just a nip now and then to help steady your hand. Help ease your long day's hard ride. Drift the back wind of your childhood and kin. I'm doing this again because I want you to really get this poem down, okay? Makes you feel warm and comfy inside. Just a nip now and then to help steady your hand and help ease your long day's hard ride. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you. This one was written in 42. I got about 5 minutes. We good? Okay. Curly Fletcher wrote this. He was a real cowboy and hailed from Bishop. He is the one that wrote the Strawberry Wrong that Marty Robin made famous. The horse that he's talking about was a horse that he rode when he cowboyed out of Tonopah named Tricky Dick. That is a fact. And here it is, the Bad Brahma Bull. I did an event a few years ago for the Reno Rodeo, and they were honoring Mr. Cotton Rosser and his family with the Flying U Rodeo Stock Company. Let's hear it for them. And this poem is about the Flying U. Snapping out broncs at the old Flying U at 40 a month, a plumb good buckaroo. Well, the boss comes around and says, "Hey, well, lad, hey, you look pretty good at riding horses at that, but you see, I ain't got no more outlaws to break. So I'll buy you a ticket and I'll give you a steak. I'm riding them bad ones." "You ain't slowing. Why, you might do some good at the big rodeo." So, while they're over there loading the bull in the chute, I'm strapping my spurs to the heels of my boots. I looks that bull over, and to my surprise, why, holy smokes, he's a foot and a half in between his two looking eyes. On top of his shoulders, he's got a big hump. I cinch my rigging just the back of that lump. And I latch in his middle, and I lets out a scream. Yee-haw! He comes out with a bellow, and the rest is a dream. Well, he jumps to the left, but he lands towards the right. Oh, I ain't no greenhorn. I'm still sitting tight. The dust starts a-fogging right out of his skin. He's a-waving them horns right under my chin. That sun in his belly couldn't be beat. He's showing the buzzards the soles of his feet. He's dipping so low that my boots filled with dirt. He's making a whip with the tail of my shirt. He's snapping the buttons right off of my clothes. He's a-bucking and a-bawing, blowing his nose. He went to fence rowing and a-weaving behind my head went to popping. I sort of went blind. He starts in high dive and I lets out a groan. We went up together. He come back alone. And if high turns over and below I can see, he's a-pawing up dirt, just a-waiting for me. And I could picture a grave and a big slab of wood saying, "Here lies a twister, thought he was good." Then I noticed there's something don't seem to be true, but the brand on his hip was the old Flying U. When I landed, he charged, but I got enough sense, so I drove that old bull through the hole in the fence. I dived through that hole, and I want you to know, I ain't going back to no big rodeo. At a straddle them Brahmas, you can bet I'm all through. I'm sore footing it back to the old flying U. Mr. Curly Fletcher, thank you. Folks, we good? Do I got 1 minute left? Oh, I'd like to give you a patriotic verse. Would you like to hear that? I'd like to close with that. I want to thank you for your attendance here. I call this America for me. It's really short. Freedom comes at a price, and it ain't cheap. Many who fought for that right lay 6 feet deep. Our flag says it all in red, white, and blue. She bows to no other, a fact that holds true. Those that came home forever scarred their lives. Some never returned to waiting kids and wives. Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and the 4th, remembrances to those who fought in war. Liberties bestowed us from their lives they gave in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. You're awesome. Thank you very much.